Hi, I'm Allie, and join me, July Kit subscribers, in making this beautiful patriotic ring. You can make it in all different ways. We actually gave you enough beads to, if you want to make a little necklace, you can, but you can learn how to make a very simple bezel that can be used not only for the 10mm cab here, but also for a 10mm Rivoli. So make sure you watch and see how it's done with a simple netting. If you would like to subscribe to the kit box, or you want to check out the materials that were used, go ahead below the video in the description there. It'll get you linked back to our site and you can check it all out there. Gather up your supplies and let's get started. So to get started with our Patriotic net ring, which can also be a pendant, if you got the subscription kit box this month, everything's in it, and we gave you a lot of extra materials in case you're not a ring person. You can certainly just make it the center of a bracelet or make a necklace to go along with it, but the materials are for the ring. So I'll show you how to do the ring. It all starts out the same. We're using a 10mm cab, some 11/0 delicas, 11/0 seed beads, and some tiny 2mm bicones. I have on some green thread here and a size 11 beading needle. I'm going to put onto my thread and needle to start a crystal followed by a 3 set of seed beads, which is delica, 11 delica. That repeats 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 times. You want to make sure if you started with a crystal that you end with the seed beads. I'm going to take it down to the base of the thread here and simply tie it into a knot. Once it's tied into the knot, we are going to give a nice tight pull. Make sure that that's pulled really tight, and then we're going to progress on through that bicone and the next delica bead and out through an 11/0 seed bead. We're going to do this twice. So we're going to pick up an 11/0, a delica, 11/0, and we're going to go back through that 11/0. One more time, 11/0, delica, 11/0, back through that same 11/0 seed bead, and then over, sewing through the whole way to the next 11/0 seed bead. That first set of your 11 will sit to one side, the second set will sit to the other side. Back here again, 11 seed bead, delica, 11 seed bead, through the 11/0 seed bead that your thread is coming out of. And then once again, that same thing again, 11 delica 11. This is a really easy way to do a netting and to hold this cabochon in place. If you want to, you could also do this with a Rivoli. Going in here. I like the cabochon because it makes the crystals kind of stand out that I'm using. And we're going the whole way around here through all 6 of these little points, adding in these beads, which eventually is that netting for us to hold the cabochon, or if you're using a Rivoli, in place. I'm going to continue the whole way around here, adding in those 2 little sections of my 3 beads facing to the top and to the bottom. After completing adding in those 2 rows of the 11 delica 11, you're going to come back through your project after finishing the second on bead number 6 and come out through that first 11/0 seed bead. And we're going to go into one of those little groups of 3. We're going to go into the first silver 11/0, and then we're going to go into the 11/0 delica bead and out. What we're going to do now is get our cabochon ready to go into place. So we are going to grab 2 of our 11/0 seed beads, and then we're going to go to the next grouping of 3 seed beads and grab the next delica at the top. We want to make sure that these all go to the back. So whichever group is towards the back of the project is the one that you are going to pick up. By going and adding in just 2 seed beads between, what that does is that keeps all of those beads in line and in place and kind of pulls them towards the back. That's going to be the back of the Rivoli or the back of the cabochon as well. Once we're done with one side, we're going to plop the cabochon in, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So it's kind of nice. The netting is the same on both sides. Now, when it comes to netting and comes to bezeling, we want to make sure that our thread is nice and tight and we're not going to lose anything. So you can see right now, before pulling super tight, I'm going back through a lot of the seed beads that were part of that net because again, I want that pulled nice and tight towards the center. I'm going to take my needle and thread around all of those beads one more time, going through all the delicas, all the seed beads, the whole way around, pulling it nice and tight. This is going to be what our cabochon sits inside of. And then we're going to take our thread and needle after doing so, come out one of the 11-0 seed beads that's connected, the delica bead, sorry, that's connected to the 11-0 seed beads. We're going to go up through the 11-0 seed bead there. I'm going to go through the 11-0 seed bead from that center row. So we're just following the thread path the way that it goes naturally. Up through the 11-0 on the opposite side and out through the delica. When we're doing this side, so the back is already closed in. When we're doing this side, we're going to flip it over. We're going to add in our 2 seed beads, going around in the circle again, pulling it in tight. And before we tighten this thread by any means, we are going to put our cabochon in there. Or again, you can use a Rivoli if you want. So I'm getting kind of halfway there. I have 3 or 4 of them connected. I'm going to push my cabochon in there. And you can see as I start pulling, it creates that nice little patriotic netting for it to sit into. And I just move that stop bead or that starter thread there where we have that knot down towards the bottom. Just like we did at the base at the bottom, we're going to make sure that we go through this at least 2 times so we don't lose our cabochon in the middle. When we get back to the beginning here, we're going all the way around. And you want to make sure you have your cabochon in here because otherwise it's going to be closed up and then you can't get your cab in. Circle the whole way around your cabochon. And I want to show at this point too that this can be done. You can have it be a very simple ring if you want. Turn this into a simple pendant and just create as is. It's a nice little tiny bezel. We're going to be adding some embellishment with some more crystals along the side. So I'm going to take my thread and needle around all of these delica beads to make that nice and tight around the piece. And then I'm going to take my thread and needle down through the seed beads and out through the 4mm bicone. Coming out that 2mm bicone, I'm going to add a delica bead, a bicone, and another delica bead. Then we're going right over to the next 2mm bicone. That's just going to sit right on the end there. So on goes delica, 2mm delica, go over and sew through the next 2mm bicone. This gets almost a little bit of points to your patriotic net ring. And if you are a subscriber, you'll notice that this month the theme is netting. So we have 3 different projects that all have to do with the idea of creating some beautiful netting that actually even looks like lace. Doing a beaded bead, doing the ring, and doing a beautiful bracelet that Anna made. Coming out here, you can see we're just continuing to go around, add our crystals with our seed beads on either side, and create almost that star pattern. The only thing that you have to make sure is as you're adding these, that you don't by accident sew through the delicas underneath. Once those 6 beads are on, your thread and needle is going to come out through that first delica bead, and then at the same time I'm going to step up into the first crystal that was just added. So through the delica bead and then out through the crystal. I want to sit this down because I want to explain what I've done to this one versus your option for keeping it just like this. If you want to add a little bit more silver to the outer edge, what I did for this version here was take my thread and needle, add a delica bead, or through the delica bead, through the 2mm, and added 1 and 2 11-0s. Went into the next delica, crystal delica, 2 more 11-0s, then came back one more time between those 2 11-0s and forced another one of my 11-0s in between. I'm going to change up the pattern so you can see 2 different versions because they're both very cute, easy, and similar. And we're going to add an 11, a delica, and an 11. So over through the next delica, 2mm delica, and out. So that row we added the 2mm delica, 2mm. Now we're doing the same as the beginning, 11 delica 11. If you want to have the silver points, like this one here, you're going to add 2 of your 11 seed beads, and then go around one more time, separating out those 2 11 seed beads and squashing a third one in between beads 1 and 2. Here I'm going around, making sure I'm going through that delicate, oops, that one here, I got an old habit. You want to add the 2 millimeter, or sorry, before adding and going through the 2 millimeter, we want to make sure to add that bead here. This is a good example of where you would do those 2 and then you separate them out. If you ever have an instance like this where your thread gets caught, it is a good idea just to take off your needle and then put your needle back on. I'm going to continue around adding a 11, then a delica, then an 11, then into the next delica, 2 delica, going the whole way around, adding in that little edge of silver and red. Once you go through and add either your 3 11s to the outer edge or your 11 delica 11, you're finished. You can really make this whatever you want though. Doing another layer, doing some more beads. We included plenty of beads for you to build this up. Just want to keep it pretty simple though. From here, I'm going to take my thread and needle down through the back of the design and tie off my thread end. I'm going to start my band for my ring with another piece of thread. For this, because it's a lined bead, I'm going to concentrate on my Duracoat galvanized silver beads to use those for the band portion of the piece. Now again, with the kit, if you got the subscription kit, we have a lot of extra materials there, so that way you can go in and do extras for the design if you want to. I'm going to knot these 2 threads off, and then we'll start with a new thread and do a simple banding for our ring. Now that we have the 2 different styles of the ring, we are going to go in and we are going to create the band for the ring to sit in. You can do a number of different bands and a number of different varieties. We're just going to do ladder stitch. I like this because it seems the most comfortable on my wrist, or on my finger rather, and it holds up well because it's got a lot of thread going through. I'm going to leave some of the thread tail here, or you can, if you want to, sew right into the ring. I'm going to make it off the ring and then we'll add it to the ring basically. From here, I'm going to decide how thick I want my band to be. I'm going to go 4 seed beads wide, take it down to the base of my thread here, 1, 2, 3, and 4 seed beads more. Go back up through the 4 that my thread was originally coming out of, and now go down through the 4 that I just put on. As I do that, I'm pulling nice and tight so that way I don't see a lot of extra thread on the ends. From here, 4 more beads go on. I'm coming out of that group of 4, adding 4 more, going back into the 4 that my thread's currently coming out of from the opposite end, and then sewing through the 4 that I just added. Coming out the top, 1, 2, 3, and 4 beads get added. So into the bottom of the beads I'm coming out of currently, then I sew down the beads that I just added. So you're going to notice every other pass with ladder stitch comes out the bottom here. Then the next one is going to come out through the top. So every row that you do is going to be opposite. 4 more coming out the top, go into the bottom, back down through the beads you just added, which brings us out through the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, into the top, and down through the bottom. Up through the beads you just added. Go ahead and continue to add all of your ladder rows to make your ring. Once you have the band as long or as wide as you need, you could even do 3, you could do 2, it's kind of up to you how you want to wear it. You're going to connect it to the back of the ring. Now, when you're connecting to the back of the ring, if you want to connect it to the outside, it'll sit a bit lower. If you want to connect it to the middle, you're going to need to make it a little bit longer, obviously, and it'll sit a little bit higher. So what I'm going to do is first, this is my sample piece, I'm going to burn down a lot of the thread ends here, since they don't need to be here. You can see how I hold and work with my thread burner. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to pick a spot on the back to sew through 1, 2, and 3 seed beads. Remember, we did these in a group of 2. And then I'm going to come back in here and sew through the 4 seed beads at the band. See how it kind of lines it up right there? We're going to sew back through this several times, through those 3, back through the band, and then I'm using a scrap thread, but if your thread's long enough, what you're going to do is sew the whole way through the cabochon there, and you're going to connect to the opposite side, the 3 on the opposite side, and that will do that band along it here. So from here, coming out the 11-0, I'm going back through the band one more time, but I'm also going to go the whole way around to the opposite side of the cabochon before I start adding the band on the opposite side. And luckily my band on the opposite side, I have plenty of extra thread at the start. So I'm going to tie this off, and I'll sew on the thread end and the band right there to finish off that band and ring. Once you loop back through that base of your netted bezel several times, you're just going to tie off your thread ends, then take your needle and thread back through the base line of the delicas one time to make sure that it's sitting even. And that finishes up then, after you tie it off, your beautiful little patriotic ring. Again, if you don't like the look of a ring and you're not super into that, you can go in and you can do the more red version or the more silver version. You can go in, if you don't care for the ring, and just make it into a little bail, that ladder stitch. You can also make it into a bracelet, adding some of the ladder stitch of the 3mm or the delica beads as well too, and even some of the bicones, since you have tons extra. So have fun playing around with what really is a teaching way to do a bezel very simply for a Rivoli or a 10mm cab. Thanks so much for joining me in creating this fun patriotic net ring. The net side of this bezel is super easy, so I can't wait to see what else you create with it. Make sure, even if you are not a subscriber, if you make this ring or make it into a pendant or even a pair of stud earrings, post it in our Facebook group from Beading and Jewelry Making. We love to see all of our different Potomac beaders' contributions and get ideas, inspiration, and really feed off the creative energies of one another. If you haven't yet, hit that little subscribe button so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads. Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for more inspirational designs.